Welcome to another episode of Do You Really Know God? This episode we're going to cover some of Jesus' early years, which I call before his coming out tour. We're going to cover some stuff that is basically talked about in the Bible, but not really a lot of talk in the Bible. I'm going to start with Matthew 2:16. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Everybody knows a lot about the stories about when Jesus was first born. I mean, that's what Christmas is all about. And about how he was born in Bethlehem in the manger. A lot of people don't know about this story shortly after. Basically, and it talks about a little bit in the Christmas tale, about Jesus is born in Bethlehem.
That's Silent Night, ain't it?
No. Well, Silent Night a little bit, but what is it?
Mary, did you know?
No. Do you know what I know?
Isn't that Mary, did you know?
No. Different one.
Oh, well.
But what a lot of people don't know is when the king found out that a boy was born in a manger that was one day going to be the ruler of all Jews and the king of all kings, he was very, very furious because he felt that he should be the most powerful thing on the earth.
Yeah.
So he feared this little boy. So he set out an order for all children in Bethlehem and its surrounding areas that were born under 2 years, of age, to be slaughtered. With that being said, the angels came down to Mary and Joseph like a week before and said, "Hey, look, you need to get Jesus out of Bethlehem and get him out now because the king is coming to kill him." So Joseph and Mary, once again, for the second time since it was known that Mary was pregnant, that they had to uproot and move. Well, they moved to Egypt, and they actually lived in Egypt for 3 years because of this.
Is Nazareth in Egypt?
No.
Okay.
Nazareth is in Israel, but they moved to Egypt.
Well, I know they call him Jesus of Nazareth, but I didn't know if that's just because he lives there or if he was born there or what.
No, because after the 3 years in Egypt, they moved to Nazareth.
Gotcha.
So, basically, Nazareth is actually where Mary and Joseph lived when Mary got pregnant originally. What happened is because she was not married and she wound up being pregnant, they basically got shunned. She got shunned out of Nazareth.
Right.
Because they thought she had sex out of wedlock. Then nobody believed her that an angel came down and made her pregnant. So, the only one who actually did believe her was Joseph. And Joseph actually protected her and agreed to marry her at the time to protect her. So when they moved to another town, nobody would know that she got pregnant before being married.
Right.
And that's what they did. So they wound up getting married, moved, and on the run, they went to Bethlehem, and that's where they basically had Jesus. And they set up home there at first until King Herod decided he was going to kill all kids there, so they had to run again. And that's when they ran to Egypt. After 3 years in Egypt, they moved back to Nazareth. And they spent a few years in Nazareth again. And then, thing is Jesus, as a young boy, did not know who he was.
Right.
Joseph and Mary knew who he was. So he was actually performing little tiny miracles that people noticed.
And they're trying to cover his tracks.
He did not notice how he was doing it. Like there is a story in the Bible. How as a little boy, they were by the waterside, and he picked up a dead bird off the beach, and he's holding it and staring at it, and all of a sudden the bird came back to life and flew off. People noticed that.
See, the way I like to think of it is if you've ever seen the first Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first scenes, they go to the zoo, and his cousin, who he's living with because his parents are dead, it's his birthday, so they took him to the zoo, and he was tapping the glass on the snake cage, and the snake didn't like it too much. Well, Harry is a wizard, as you know. If you don't know, that shouldn't be a spoiler. But he ends up speaking with the snake. They call it possum tongue.
Yeah.
And Harry, without, consciously doing it, he makes the glass disappear. So his cousin falls into the snake exhibit, and then the glass reappears magically. So now he's trapped in the snake exhibit. And Harry's sitting there like, whoa, did I just do that? How did I do that? And his aunt and uncle obviously get pretty upset, and his aunt is his mom's sister. His mom was a wizard, so they knew all about that. They knew Harry was probably like that, but they tried to suppress it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah, and basically, in his younger years, they had to move around a bit because of his accidental miracles.
Right.
And people starting to notice. And they always a little bit here and there. And Jesus did ask Mary and Joseph quite often of why he could do this. And believe it or not, Jesus knew that Joseph was not his father. And he did not call Joseph dad. They always told Jesus, and growing up, that one day his true father will tell him why he has these powers, but never told him who his true father was. Which to me would be, your little kid would be a bit confusing.
Yeah. Well, I just think of, and I know this is obviously not what happened, but like, I think it'd be funny if Jesus is walking around and be like, oh yeah, that's not my dad. My dad's gonna tell me how I get these powers, blah, 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 and he's at school, and all of a sudden some homeless guy comes up to him, and, crazy homeless people, you have superpowers, blah, blah, blah. Jesus is like, that's my dad.
Yep.
I know that's not what happened at all.
No.
But
Believe it or not, Jesus did not find out that he was the Son of God till he's the age of, I think it was either 10 or 12 years old. He had a series of things that went on in his life. I mean, you get the little miracles, but he hit a time, and it doesn't talk like his exact age at the time.
Right.
In the Bible. But I'd say between the ages of 8 to 12 is when he really had a hard time with his powers.
Hard time as in not controlling them?
Not being able to control them. And you got to think about it. Between the ages of 8 to 12, you got a lot going on in your body. A lot of hormones coming out.
Yeah, that's one thing I wondered. I get Jesus was human and all. But one, why did Mary have to go through a 9-month pregnancy?
Because the whole thing with Jesus being born is he had to go through the full life experience as a true human.
Okay, I was wondering.
So he's born like a human. He's brought up like a human. He had pain like a human.
Well, I was just, that's something I always wondered about because it's never talked about in the Bible. Did Jesus go through puberty?
But I'm sure he did. He did. He felt all human emotions and human pain, suffering. And Mary and Joseph knew he had to. Like he had relatives that died that he could have healed.
Yeah.
But he couldn't heal them because he was meant to.
Certain things you got to go through. Yeah.
And here's one of the things: is between those ages 8 to 12, there's actually a good movie on Netflix right now. I can't remember the name, but it's about it's all about the ages between 8 and 12 on all the stuff that he went through in that short period of time.
Yeah.
He went through a lot of stuff in a short period of time because he's going through hormones. His uncle was very sick and on the verge of dying, and back then, if you know about the way families are, a lot of families, they lived together. Mm-hmm. It was like aunts, uncles, grandparents, all lived in the same house. And his aunt and uncle, which was Mary's brother, and their kids lived and traveled with Joseph and Jesus and Mary. Wherever they went, they went. And his uncle's, or Jesus' cousin, which was a young girl, knew about Jesus bringing a bird back to life and kept saying, "My dad's sick, why won't you fix him?" So Jesus at this time was going through a lot of stuff where his cousin begging him to fix her father. Yet his mother was telling him, "Don't you dare. Leave him alone." He also went through a stage in that time. They lived in, they was living in Jerusalem at the time.
Yep.
And, because Joseph had a good job there. He's a carpenter and he's doing a lot of building. So they were there for a good stretch of time at the time. And Jesus had people that like bullied on him. Because one thing that Jesus was doing is he is all about love, so he would never fight.
Yeah.
So because of that, he had some kids that bullied him all the time. Well, it came to a day, and here's the thing about Jesus growing up too, and he always asked Mary about this, and it talks about it in the Bible, is he could always see angels, and he could see the devil. The devil was out to get him. The devil is what caused the king to try and slaughter him.
Yep.
King Herod. And the devil is the one that was actually trying to get him eliminated because the devil knew who he was and what he was about.
Right.
Well, at this time, the devil actually, this one particular time, Jesus was being bullied and picked on by these kids. And these kids actually were beating up Jesus, and then his cousin, the little girl, jumped in and kind of hit the bully over the back of the head with a stick and that, told him to leave Jesus alone. Well, the bully started beating up his cousin. So Jesus got up and yelled at the bullies to leave her alone. Well, when they went to chase after Jesus, one of the bullies tripped over a rock and hit his head on the ground on the rock, chasing Jesus. Which, believe it or not, killed him.
I was going to say, that's a quick life ender right there.
Yeah, it was a good hit on the head with a rock when he fell. But the problem is Jesus the devil was pretty creative. He actually stood in the back of the crowd when this was all happening. And all he did is he whispered in somebody's ear who did not actually see the full event, just seen the dead boy, and said, "Hey, did you see Jesus just killed that boy?" Well, with doing that, you know how crowds happen. The one who doesn't see everything is the one who starts to crowd of, "Hey, Jesus killed that boy," and it's a chain reaction like anything else. Everybody now thinks Jesus killed the boy.
Yeah.
Well, with all the commotion, Mary came out and grabbed Jesus, and they ran for safety. They got to the house, and there's a lynch mob there trying to get in the house to get Jesus in this. Because back then it was an eye for an eye.
Yeah.
And Joseph came in, and he goes, "I guess we got to move quick again." And the little girl is like, "But Jesus didn't do nothing." And they're like, "It don't matter. These people are not going to believe it." So while they're all discussing it, Jesus actually snuck out of the house, went to the boy's house that just died. Now, if anybody knows anything about the times, they didn't have funeral parlors. You didn't go lie in a funeral parlor or morgue into your burial. That was your house. You were put into your bed. and covered in your bed your dead body for people to see for a week.
Yep.
And that you were displayed at your own home.
Yep.
Well, Jesus went there, snuck into the house, and again, back then they didn't have locks on the doors and keys.
Right.
I mean, it was these old times. And got into the house, and he healed the little boy, brought the little boy back to life. Well, the boy's father caught him, and the family was like basically calling him a witch, calling him the devil, and calling him many different things. So Joseph came and found him and rushed him off, and they booked out of town basically quick. Well, with this action, it made such a public notoriety. What is the word I'm looking for?
Notorious?
No, notoriety.
Notoriety?
Yeah. The public knew pretty good, so obviously now the rumors went around town big. Well, now at this time, King Herod was dead. But it was his son that was now ruling the land.
Right.
And with his son ruling the land, he knew what his father did. So now these speculations started coming out about this boy who can bring back the dead. And obviously they're in the capital of Israel. And he gets back to the king, and the king's like, whoa. So my father killed all those babies but didn't get this little boy.
This Jesus guy, yeah.
But they didn't know his name, believe it or not. He did not know his name at the time. And they said they did not get this boy. This boy's still alive, and he's going to take over. And obviously, some of his cabinet is still his old father's cabinet. You know? So they're like, man, you got to do something about this, because he's gonna rule the land. He's going to overthrow your throne. And one thing back then is no king liked the thought of somebody overthrowing them.
Yeah.
So he now sent the mission out to go find Jesus and to eliminate him. So the only thing that they know now is there's a little boy between 8 and 12 years old because of the time, and that he could heal. Well, they start on the journey back to Nazareth. They decide they're going to go back to Nazareth. Well, now they got a journey to do. And it wasn't a short journey. It was like a week-long journey. So as they're heading back to Nazareth, his uncle really turned sick. Really turned sick. On the verge of dying. And he goes in the water and he starts doing a speech. Now, mind you, when they're traveling back to Nazareth, back then there's certain trails that everybody used, kind of like the highways today.
Yeah.
They did it on foot and donkey and stuff like that. Well, there's always a lot of travelers back and forth. Well, there's a bunch of travelers at this watering hole. And the uncle was in the water saying, I'm on the way to come meet you, my God. And basically, almost to the point of death, but he's standing in the water, praising to the Lord and that. And people are watching him, knowing that he's sick. And Jesus' little cousin starts crying to Jesus, please help my daddy, please help my daddy. And Mary wasn't around at the time. She's in a tent, getting ready, getting Jesus' brothers ready and sisters ready. So Jesus actually walks out into the water, talks to his uncle, and then heals him in front of a whole crowd of people. And Mary came out, and she's like, oh boy, this ain't a good thing.
What did you do this time?
So he healed her brother, which is his uncle.
Now, do you know what he had? Like, was this uncle visibly sick?
Yeah, well, pretty much. Back then,
Because, like, if you have cancer or something, most of the time you can't tell.
They never said what he had, but they did say that he is deathly ill to the point of, like, coughing up blood. And
okay, so they noticed he stopped doing that. And
yeah, it was a visible.
I wasn't sure if he had, like, one of those diseases where it ate at your flesh or something like that.
No, it was very noticeable. Like, he coughed up blood and coughing spells, and to the point of that, to where you pretty much knew that you're gonna.
Yeah, not too much longer.
So anyway, so now they gotta get back on the road. Well, with them doing it in public like that, some of the travelers went back to Jerusalem, to the capital, and told the king, hey, this boy who's healing people is on his way on this path. So now they're like, oh boy, we gotta find out. Now we got a direction. So he sends his soldiers out to kind of intercept them. Well, Jesus is still trying to talk to his mother of, why do I got these powers?
Right.
What's going on with me? Why
How
am I
can I
not
do
like the other kids? So when they get to Nazareth, the Roman soldiers actually catch up to him. But they don't know, one, they don't know his name's Jesus, but they don't know who he is per se, in a sense. So they get to that where they're going to stay, which is with this, I don't know what, they don't really proclaim of what she is to Jesus or in the family. But it's an old lady that they stay with in Nazareth. I'm not sure if it's one of their mothers or something to that effect. It really doesn't get into detail. But she comes out and she actually bribes the Roman soldiers who are cooking to get them to leave everybody alone. So, and wine. So they basically take it like a human, you know?
Yeah.
And they go about their way. Needless to say, the emperor, or the king, finds out that the Roman soldiers caught these travelers going to Nazareth and took a bribe. So he obviously killed their soldiers. Yeah. And he said, well, if they got to Nazareth and there's travelers going to Nazareth down this trail, and they did have a little boy between that fits the age group, I better send another soldiers over there.
Yeah.
So he sends off other soldiers to the house. Well, just so happens at that time, Jesus' family decides they're going to go back to Jerusalem because it's the week of Sabbath.
Yeah.
So they went back to Jerusalem because obviously, you got to mind you too, it's not like today, like you want to travel to North Carolina, it's a 12-hour drive.
Yeah.
Back then you did it on
from
horse.
Connecticut.
Yeah, from Connecticut. Yeah. Back then it was done by walking and horses and mules. Most of the travelers did it by foot and with the mules, and they had the mules just pulling the carts.
Yeah.
So you got to figure an average, say, 50-mile travel. Like today, we could do that in about an hour and a half with a car.
Right about, yeah.
Back then, you're talking 4 or 5 weeks. 4 or 5 days.
Right.
Worth of traveling. So, if you look at a map between...
And not only that, you're going based on the mule's time schedule, too.
Yeah.
If the mule don't feel like walking, you ain't gonna make the mule walk.
That in yourself, that's a lot of walking for people.
Oh, yeah.
And not to mention, you gotta think you're in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Depending on what time of year it is, it's very hot during the day. You're talking 110, 120 degree temp.
Oh, yeah.
So you gotta take all this into concept of, it's not like an easy walk like a nice fall day when it's 50 degrees out doing a 50-mile walk.
Yeah.
You're talking some severe weather walking. And there's not paved roads. You're walking through sand.
Right. Let me tell you, I don't even like walking from the beach to the shore.
Exactly. So, for them to do the trip from Jerusalem to Nazareth, the first time when they left, you're talking, that was probably a 2-3 week walk for them. So when I finally got back to the king that these soldiers took a bribe, you're probably talking, it was probably a month or two later. And then by the time he has to get soldiers back out to there, you're probably talking another month or two.
Right.
So you're talking...
wasting a lot of time.
You're talking, Jesus and his family was in Nazareth probably like a good 4 months before the soldiers were on their way back. So they decided to do the travel back to Jerusalem so they can honor the Sabbath.
Yeah.
And you mind you, back then, a lot of Jewish they did all kinds of traveling to make the Sabbath because it was a very holy week, and everybody made it.
Yep.
Anybody who actually was healthy enough to make the trip did the trip. So when the soldiers got to the house where the old lady is, they actually tortured the old lady because Jesus was not there and his family were gone. So they actually tortured the old lady to find out who the boy was and his name. And that's when they found out Jesus' name at the time. So, and they found out that he was going to Jerusalem for Sabbath. So they started making their way back to Jerusalem to get to Sabbath, because it's not like back then they didn't have cell phones. You couldn't call ahead to the king and say, hey, he's coming your way.
Get 10 soldiers out there, stat.
Yeah, you can't do that. They had to make their way back. So now they're making their way back.
At that point, I would have just waited for them to come back. I just sat there and waited about, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
You're probably talking 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Just be like, hey, you got a place we could crash real quick?
So they started making their way back. Throughout the journey, and there's a little bit of talks in the Bible. Thing is Jesus' younger years. There's a little bit of talk, and a lot of it bases around this one little time. There's a little bit of in betweens, but this was a very crucial time because this in Jesus' life was. I think the reason why they talk about it so much is because he did so much in this time. Because he's going through hormones and he's going through a lot of stuff, and he's at the stage of his life where he's really pushing and asking Joseph and Mary of who he was, why does he have these powers,
right?
And who, if Joseph ain't his father, who's his real father?
Well, it's just like, obviously more amplified, but the same thing that every teenager goes through.
Exactly.
It's just like, who am I? Why am I like this?
Exactly.
How do I have to take this into account in my daily life?
Exactly. But he has this other part where he has this little superpower.
Yeah, we all can't be wizards.
that nobody else has, and he's not allowed to show it. He has to hide it.
But he can't help showing it either.
And he's at the point where basically he wanted to use his power for good right now. And like anybody coming into teen years, your parents say, no, you're going to do it anyway just because you can. And you're going to push the limit of what you can get away with because you didn't understand consequences yet of why he had to hide this power. And so when they go on their way back to Jerusalem, they got lucky a few times and dodged the soldiers because soldiers got groups, and then they kind of like, now they know the soldiers are after them. Well, when they get into Jerusalem and through the Sabbath, back then the Sabbath was, all I can explain it like how I would imagine it, would be like Mardi Gras in New Orleans before COVID-19. You're just talking about people everywhere. There's vendors everywhere. There's people everywhere.
Right.
And there's just so much going on, and it's like you can't hide anything because there's vendors everywhere. You got to figure there's high preachers everywhere on the thing talking about God and teaching about God. Well, there's a synagogue with big crowds of people wanting to go in there and hear about God.
It's just like like an action movie where the main character is trying to run away from the police or whatever, and they run into, they're in New York or whatever. They jump into this big crowd of people, and whoever that's chasing after them just looking around like, where'd they go?
Exactly. So they get to Sabbath, and Roman soldiers are obviously all there. And at this time, because on the way there on the trail, the Roman soldiers caught groups, and they found out that the Roman soldiers are now after Jesus, and that they know who he is. So you got to picture Joseph and Mary is doing everything they can to protect him,
right? And
telling him he has to avoid these soldiers and all that. So they're in the Sabbath. So Jesus, being a young kid, he's pretty smart. He knows how to try and blend in and all this. So he gets into Sabbath and trying to blend in. Well, here is a little thing that set it out. There was a blind man, an old blind man preacher, sitting there telling stories to kids about God and this, that, and the other. And while Jesus is trying to listen and all this, somebody, I think it was his cousin or somebody, told Jesus about what happened in Bethlehem, about all these kids dying because the Roman soldiers were trying to kill him.
Yep.
Well, not the Roman soldiers. Sorry, it wasn't even Roman soldiers. It was Jewish soldiers that were out to kill him. It wasn't even Romans. Haran was a tribe of the Jewish tribe. So they were out trying to kill him, and this was the first that Jesus heard about it. So he found out that a lot of young kids died when they were supposed to be him.
Right.
So he hears this wise old blind preacher telling stories about the Bible. So Jesus always was fascinated whenever he heard people telling scripture. So he comes and he sits by this blind preacher, and the blind preacher is telling the scripture. Well, Jesus butts in and just tells the whole scripture and takes over the basically saying the scripture.
Yeah, I remember something about that.
And this wise man looks at, well, don't really look at him, but says to him and says, "Young boy, you're very smart for a boy your age." And he says, "What do you know about this?" And then Jesus recites that part of scripture. It was very good. And then Jesus asks him, and he says, "Well, can I ask you one question that I don't know?" And the wise man is like, "Absolutely, ask me anything." He goes, "Well, I'm hearing something about a lot of young boys dying in Bethlehem so many years ago that were 2 and under, that they were looking for the Messiah." So the wise man is like, "Wow, I haven't heard that story in a long time, but yes, that's true." And he tells Jesus all about it, and he says it's 100% true. They tried to kill him because of the Messiah, and they went and they killed the Messiah. And Jesus is like, they're sure that they got the Messiah. And the wise man says, well, he's been quiet and nobody's heard from him since. So Jesus is like, oh. So Jesus actually gets up, puts his hands on the face of the wise man, and says, "Thank you. You are healed now," and walks away. Well, the wise man just starts noticing that he can now see. He's like, "What the heck?" And he stands up. He goes, "I can see. What's going on? I can see." Now, everybody around knows he's blind and knows he's been blind for many years. So he starts shouting, "I can see. Where's that boy that healed me?" Well, because he's making a commotion while Roman soldiers are seeing this, and they're like, "Ooh,
he's here. Somebody
just healed him. He's close." So they're like all scrambling now, trying to find out where Jesus is. And now this wise man is yelling, "Where is this boy that healed me?" Because you know your little boy that healed him, but you don't even know what he looks like. Well, Jesus is trying to state. Well, this is a pivotal point, I think, a lot in Jesus' younger years, because he winds up coming face to face with the lead Roman soldier, face to face. And they're surrounded by Roman soldiers and surrounded by people all over the place. And he sees this Roman soldier, and all of a sudden he gets a vision. And the vision is, this Roman soldier is one of the Roman soldiers who killed the most kids. He's the lead Roman soldier during that Bethlehem raid.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus sees it and just kind of looks at him and says, "It was you who killed all those boys, all those innocent kids." And the Roman soldier looked at Jesus, and something happened. Because they stared, it says it right in the Bible, they stared each other down for a good, 5 minutes. Quiet, just staring at each other. And then the Roman soldier says, "You need to go now." So Jesus ran off. And he said, "You need to go now, and you cannot be seen again." And Jesus just runs off into the crowd and disappears. It doesn't really say why he did that. There's only speculations. Only thing we can think of is when he actually seen the Messiah, it went back in his head of, oh boy, I did a lot of sin. And
Let me try to make up for it.
I'm face to face with the Messiah right now. If I actually kill him, I just signed my death warrant.
Yeah.
So there's only speculations of what went through his mind, but they say in the Bible it was a good couple minutes stare down between each other with nothing being said. And once Jesus said, right in the beginning, you are the lead soldier that killed all those little boys.
Well, my speculation, this is just personally what I think may have happened. When you said earlier how the devil used to speak to people.
Yes.
Who says an angel can't do the same? Just like an angel's behind his back, like, hey, bro, don't mess with him. He's for realsies. And then the Roman soldiers just standing there like, I don't know who said that, but I'm not going to find out.
And you're 100% right. It could have been. And it shows in, like, there's a lot of stuff, and I'm sure this was, because there's a lot of talk about in Scripture where Jesus actually said to Mary, did you see him? Do you see that man right there? And Joseph and Mary look around and say,
No,
there's nobody here, just us. And he's like, no, right there. There's a man right there in the house.
So I wonder, did these angels ever communicate with Jesus? Or did they more just keep an eye out on him, make sure everything's going smoothly?
I think everything was just keeping an eye out on, because there's a lot of talk about how he could see angels.
But never interact with them.
And he could see the devil. But there was never any talk about, like, they communicated. More or less, like, he could see him and he'd tell Joseph and Mary, hey.
Who's that guy right there? Yeah.
You see this dude over here? And one of them, the reason why they know it's the devil, because when that boy died, he actually seen the devil whisper to that guy and say, hey, did you see Jesus kill that guy? And he went to his mother and said, this man looked right at me, and he told another man that I killed him, and he saw that I didn't even touch him. And that's why they know it's the pretty much was the devil trying to cause make chaos. Also, Jesus seen that man kick that rock out to the kid to trip him. So they said that the devil was standing right there, and the devil was the one actually pushed the rock in front of the kid for him to trip on. That knocked him down and hit his head on the other rock.
Right.
So Jesus said that. So that's why I thought that was the devil that was causing the mayhem to try and get Jesus murdered. Obviously, didn't help. So basically, once Jesus had this little confrontation with the Roman soldiers, obviously, Joseph, Mary, and all of them said, okay, we need to get out of here now.
Right.
And they booked out of Jerusalem. They went back to Nazareth. Now, it is said in the Bible that Roman soldier, who was the lead soldier, actually went back to the king and said Jesus was dead. He actually told the king he killed Jesus. And everybody said, oh, yeah, we seen it. Yep, oh, yep, that's it. Yeah, we seen it. So, which gave the king peace of mind, thinking Jesus was now officially dead. With that being said, that's when Mary decided to take Jesus off to the side and say, hey, look, I think it's time I better have a talk with you before.
Right.
They're out looking for you now, so now it's time that you got to listen. And Mary actually sat down with Jesus, and they said that she had the heart-to-heart with him. She told him about the angels coming down and impregnating her, and that he is the Son of God. She also told him how the king, Herod, killed all those boys, to try and kill him because they feared him.
Right.
And told him right out that the reason why he has to tie his powers up right now is because he's so young and his mission is not clear yet, that he needs to sit back and control his powers so people don't notice, because God has a mission for him. and God will let you know when your mission's when it's time to happen.
Yeah.
So basically, during that time, it was the most commotion. So it's the most talked about time of Jesus' childhood. Once that confrontation with the Roman soldier, that's when Jesus goes blank for a number of years. There is little stories in the Bible about little things that he's done.
But nothing major.
Nothing that caused anything to create a crowd or notice.
Right.
For people to notice. There is said that he did little tiny things here and there. He healed a couple blind people and did stuff to people that kept their mouth shut, basically.
Right.
And he stayed quiet for quite a few years, and he just did what he had to do. Like Mary said, that's when God had his little speaking with Jesus and told him his mission. Now, it's probably one thing that the Bible is never clear is about the age, like the ages that he was. But I know when he's in his 20s is when he actually had a little talk with an angel. And the angel said, your mission's clear now, and it's almost time to get going. You need to go to the river and find this fellow called John the Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be baptized, and then your mission will come clear. And that's when he's in his 20s at the time, working as a carpenter. That's when he said, okay, well, I guess this is where I find out.
Yeah.
So he went down to the river and he ran into John the Baptist. And the thing is that's amazing, and this is a lot of factual stuff because you can read it not even just in the Bible. There's other stories about different stuff.
I know one big one is there's a Greek philosopher named Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
He has many writings, and he's a known atheist. You read his work as far as philosophy and stuff. It's all about humanitarianism, and how there is no God and stuff like that. But in multiple occasions, he has writings about Jesus of Nazareth saving leopards.
Yep.
Or healing lepers. He has writings of this Jesus from Nazareth healing the blind, healing the deaf.
Yep.
And if he has physical writings of it that don't have anything to do, actually have the complete opposite to do with religion.
Yep.
Something happened. You got to give something credit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And believe it or not, when Jesus went to the water's edge with John the Baptist. Now, John the Baptist, there's a lot of different writings about him outside the Bible. He's actually trying to think of his name. He was a Roman soldier.
Mm-hmm.
He's a famous Roman soldier too. In his diary, when he died, and his diary is still out there. I can't remember his name.
I don't know any Roman soldiers.
He talked about this loony bin that he had to deal with named John the Baptist. They called John the Baptist. Now, mind you, back then, John the Baptist, he's a very much follower of the Bible and about baptism. But he's to the point where people thought he was crazy. He's a prophet and a big follower of God, but the way he did stuff is people thought of him as crazy.
Right.
So a lot of people thought he was some, like Roman soldiers thought he was some crazy lunatic. The Pharisees actually feared him and thought he was possibly Jesus Christ, was the Christ, because of the way he acted. Jesus now, on the other hand, comes to the water's edge, and the second he gets there, and actually there is a writing from, not Simon, Simon's cousin, who was actually there, witnessed it, said that when Jesus walked to the water's edge, John the Baptist stopped and looked at him and got down on his knees at Jesus' feet and said, "Messiah, you have come." Jesus never said nothing at that point, except before walking the water edge.
Right.
And Jesus looked at him and said, "John, baptize me." And John the Baptist turned around and said, and this is in the Bible, "I am not worthy of baptizing the Messiah." And Jesus said, "I give power to all men to baptize anybody." Baptism is a thing between you and God. As a marriage, anybody can perform it. And this is where it makes it, baptism does not have to be held in church. Baptism can happen anywhere, so long as there's a crowd to see it, because it's supposed to be like a wedding. So he walks in the water, and John the Baptist actually baptizes him. Now, the second he baptizes him, the skies open, and God actually speaks to the crowd and says, "This is my son." Jesus is here to lead you out of the temptations and forgive your sins. Follow and listen to him. And everybody witnessed it. Everybody's seen it. And even Simon's cousin writes about it in Scripture. I mean, outside of Scripture.
Right.
And writes a book about the whole... There's actually a book. I forgot what it's called, but it's all about the day John the Baptist met Jesus, and writes about all that. And he actually ran back to Simon, because Simon, before he became a disciple, Simon had a lot of issues in his life, and he was a known gambler. He owed Rome a lot of money in taxes, to the point where Rome was ready to kill him. And he ran back to Simon and he says, "Hey, our prayers are answered. The Messiah is here." And Simon at the time was like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "I'm telling you, I was down at the water's edge with John the Baptist, and he baptized the Messiah." And Simon, knowing John the Baptist, and knowing that everybody thinks he's a crazy man, is like, "Man, you listen to that crazy old bat that's in the water? Are you kidding me?" And basically didn't believe him at first. Now, mind you, this is when Jesus now realizes his mission a little bit, but he hasn't really gone on his coming out tour yet.
Right.
It's just what I call it, the awakening of the missions. After he left John the Baptist, Jesus actually did his 40 days in the wilderness of fasting. It is in that time of the 40 days in the wilderness is when he actually gets handed his mission.
Right.
And he's told what it is. And, like, people don't realize this, but this has to be a big burden to live by. He's told his exact mission. He's told how many disciples he has to get. He's told basically pretty much, hey, this is your first step, this is your second step. And he's also told after 3 years of doing what I'm telling you to do, you are going to be crucified. You are going to die a very painful death to take the sins of these people. I don't know about you, but at that point, I'm being told, hey, look, you need to go out, spread my word, heal a couple people. Then they're going to kill you after you heal them. I don't know about you, but I don't know how good I'd stomach that knowledge.
Well, I remember, so I had a various group of friends freshman year here in Connecticut. And one of them, his name was Ben Smith. And Isaiah, they were both heavy Christians. And I had two other friends. One was Josh, one was Tyler. We called Tyler Fitzy. And they were both atheists. So biblical talk would commonly come up at our lunch table. So we were sitting there eating lunch, and I can't remember if it was Fitzy or if it was Josh. I'm pretty sure it was Fitzy. Made a comment about something about Jesus, and kind of similar to what you just said about how he doesn't think how he could stomach it. And Ben Smith, he actually came out, and this is the first time I ever heard anything like this. He said that Jesus didn't want to do it.
No.
He said that Jesus sat there and begged to God, saying, "Is there another way this can be done?" And God said, "No."
Well, when he actually did that was actually the night he was taken. Was it? Begged to God. He did his mission knowing it's going to end with him in death.
Right.
The night after the Last Supper, and he knew that was going to be his last night as a free man, and they went to the valley, and the disciples were sleeping, and Peter and Simon were supposed to stay up, stay awake, and stay God.
Yeah.
While Jesus went off and prayed. And it was said that Jesus went back to pray for an hour and prayed to God, there's got to be another way. Let me live longer. I can heal so many people. I can do so much good. Just let me stay. Let's find another way. And God kept telling him, no, there is no other way. Right. In order for you to save your people and save their sins, you must die like this way.
You must
You're gonna
live
die.
According to my plan.
And then after an hour of praying, he came back and he noticed that Simon and Peter were sleeping. He actually woke them up and said, "What the heck?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be my followers. You're supposed to protect me. I'm asking you to stay in God, and you're sleeping. How can you be sleeping?"
Right.
So he wake him up, and then he go back and pray. He pray another hour, and he begged and pleaded God and said, "Hey, come on, Dad, help me out here. I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die yet. I think I can do more good by helping the blind and helping these people alive."
You know how kids, when they want a piece of candy, they ask their parent, and the parent says no, so they ask again, they ask again, they ask again.
And that's what Jesus did.
And I was going to say that, but I also think it'd be funny if Jesus was just sitting there praying, be like, "Come on, Father, please, there has to be another way." He's like, "Jesus, I swear on me, if you ask me one more time, you're grounded."
But and the thing is, every time he came back after that hour of prayer, Peter and Simon were sleeping. And it says in the Bible, he'd wake them up again. And I could picture they're sleeping, and he starts kicking them like, "What the heck are you idiots doing? You're supposed to stand God for me. You're going to let me get killed while I'm in prayer?"
Well, I don't know. I just think it's funny because I'm the type of person where the way my mind works is I look at a situation or a story and I instantly try to find ways to flip it just to make it a little funnier, and I just like to think that they're sitting there at the Last Supper and Jesus passes a note to Peter and Simon and be like, "Hey, you want to watch me? I'm going to go pray." And they're like, yeah, whatever. So they're all they're all drinking and stuff, so they're all just out there standing talking, and Jesus is in the garden or whatever, and he's praying, and he's like, "God, please, Dad, please, there has to be another way." And God's sitting there, he's like, no, this is the way it has to be. And he's sitting there, and an hour of them arguing goes by. Jesus is like, "Fine." And he walks out.
He storms off.
Yeah. Peter and Simon are sitting there sleeping. He knocks one upside the head, and the other's like, not waking the other one up. He was like, "What if they came and got me?" Like, I'm sorry. And so they just stand back up. He's like, "I'm going to die tonight." Turns back. "Dad, please. And God is just like, "No." And goes back out, and they're sleeping again. It's just a repeated cycle for hours.
For 3 hours. Because it says, he goes back and prays 3 times. And they say he actually begged and pleaded with God for another way around. But it makes sense because God even told him, and he was teaching, like when he talked and all that, telling his disciples how when he dies, he's going to die, and then he's going to be resurrected 3 days later. So he's already told his disciples how it's going to go down.
Right.
Now at the last minute, he's begging them for how to change it around. He got cold feet,
yeah.
But God's like, dude, you already told them how to do it. If we change act now, nobody's going to believe you're the Messiah. They're going to blame you off as some coward running. You got to do it this way, dude. You already told them how it's going to go down. That's almost like the military saying, hey, we're going to flank them over here. And then all last minute, no, let's not flank there. Let's go over here. Let's take them out for coffee.
See,
can we go out for coffee instead of shooting them?
See, you joke about that, but that's a real thing that us soldiers have to deal with.
Well, you got to deal with changing flank, but I'm talking changing all up.
Oh,
rather than killing you, let's go out for tea.
Right.
Let's have tea with the other end.
I don't know. I like.
Or figure two governments, okay? You got the president of two countries. And we're like, I declare war on you. Okay, I'm going to kick your butt. Okay, we're going to fight. Never. Can we go out for coffee? Can we talk about this over tea?
I like to think it's funny. Jesus is arguing with God, and then finally on that last time he turns back and
all of a sudden this big hand comes out of this guy and smacks him up beside the head. Listen up.
All you hear is just like a thunder, like, and then God just goes, Jesus Christ, if you don't go back to your hut and get in your room, I swear to God, when you get up here tomorrow, you're grounded.
A big backhand. Oh, no. Don't make me come over there and give you something to cry about.
Right. And then Peter and Simon are just at the edge like, ooh, Jesus is in trouble. And Jesus comes back, just doesn't even talk to him, just storms past him all mad and stomping his feet. And then they're like, should we follow him?
So, with this being said, is Jesus had his mission. So the 40 days in the wilderness, that gave him his clear view of his mission. And that's when he knew after 3 years he's going to die.
And that was basically the start of his coming out party.
Well, it was his mission was told. After he did his 40 days in the wilderness, it doesn't say the time frame before he actually did his coming out. But my imagination would be a good year after the wilderness. Only because he had to pick his 12 disciples.
Right. Well, wouldn't that be... I personally consider that part of the coming out tour. Picking the disciples.
No, it's kind of... It's the pre-planning of the coming out tour. Okay. Yeah, I don't consider the coming out tour, in my opinion, till he talked to a Somalian woman at the well, at Jacob's well. Because that's when he turned around and told her the story, and she goes, I'm going to tell everybody. And he's like, I'm counting on that.
Right.
And that's when she went running off, and she seen that past the disciples, and she's like, he's the Messiah. He is the Christ. I'm going to tell everybody. And she went running off, and that's when Peter and Simon and all of the disciples came up to the thing, and I think it was Simon looked right at Jesus and said, I take it we're going public now? And Jesus is like, yep.
Well,
game on.
I mean, I guess I kind of understand and agree with what you're saying, because it's just like me when I put a video up on here or I make a song, I show it to almost everyone, family and friend wise within a 2-house radius, and then before I post it.
Well, I think it's to me it's even kind of like anything, like say a rock band. You're gonna have a tour, okay? Mm-hmm. And you have the plan, and you're planning the locations, you're planning the
who's
people
gonna
involved, the setups, the stages, the songs, you're planning all that. Us as the public, we know about it, but the tour does not actually start to that first night that they were at the first show, and they do it.
No, I get you. I agree.
So I call it the pre-planning, because the pre-planning of the coming out tour, actually, he did not do a lot of stuff to create a scene, except for a couple little things. Like one, he healed Mary.
Yep.
Mary was a hooker, who was
Mary Magdalene,
who was possessed by 5 demons. The Jewish high priest actually tried to heal her and do a exorcism on her. And they actually lost, and they turned around and said she can't be healed. She's sorry, she's gonna die. And then they seen her a couple weeks later, all healed.
Yeah, she's just
like,
walking around.
What happened? So they actually talked to her and trying to figure out what happened. And she's like, "Oh, they just went away." And they're like, "Well, who healed you?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't remember his name. Some passerby, some bum." She already knew it was Jesus.
Yeah.
But she wasn't giving out the name. But they were following, trying to figure out, because they knew somebody healed her. And there was somebody of very big power.
Right.
And then he also healed a couple lepers in that time. And the biggest one that he did that really caught eye is he healed that one, the crippled who could not walk. And that's when he's starting to do, at the time he's actually people thought he's a teacher, because he's acting like a teacher.
Right.
And what he'd do is he just preached to crowds, and it wasn't uncommon for people to do that. Back then, it was very common for people to have teachers of the religion.
Yeah.
Because not everybody could make it to the Holy Land.
Well, it's just like nowadays evangelists, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Not everybody can make it to the Holy Land to Jerusalem, and not everybody could go to Somalia to go to Jacob's Well.
Right.
So, because everything was, like we talked about, everything was a hike. It's not like getting in your car, driving 50 miles to go wherever in about an hour. Everything was days worth of walk, and not everybody could do it. So there's a lot of people that went to like the Holy Lands or wherever, and they learned the Bible, and then they went off and taught it, and they taught it to different people. Just so happens that Jesus knew the Bible better than any high preacher. Obviously, he's Jesus Christ. And he also changed the Bible because he's teaching what God was telling him to teach.
Right.
He was not just teaching what Moses did, and he wasn't just teaching what David did. And
right, he's teaching what's going to happen in the future.
He's teaching what you need to do. And like, previously it was thought that only way you could pray or talk to God was either at a synagogue, at a church,
Yep.
or at Jacob's Well.
Right.
Were the only places that you could really talk to God.
What was so special about Jacob's Well?
Jacob's Well was actually a group of people, the Israelites, when they were on their way to the Holy Land.
Yep.
They were in the area, and they did not have a church or nothing like that. So God instructed, because they're making a town there, God instructed Jacob to dig a well. This well will give you water to quench your people's thirst. At this well, when you dig this well, it's going to be a holy well. It will never run out of water to give your people water, quench their thirst so they don't die. And at this well, Jacob made it as, this is where we will pray, because God told me to dig this well. It will be an endless supply of water for us. So let's make it a place for us to praise God. Pray for God.
Gotcha.
So that's what the point of that, because where Jacob's Well is, there's no body of water anywhere close to it. Where like a lot of the journeys, they had bodies of water.
Right.
No bodies of water. There was miles and miles away from any bodies of water. So they actually made a community there, and they dug the well. And Jacob was the leader at the time. That's why it's called Jacob's Well.
Yeah.
And Jacob was a prophet who was actually led by God. He was one of the ones after Moses, after David, who was leading the Israelites to the Holy Land. And so basically it was considered Jacob's Well, and it was considered a place of holiness.
Right.
Because God said, build this well. So with that being said, Jesus was telling people, you don't need to go to church to pray.
Right, God is in your heart.
You don't need to go to a well to pray. He also told them, you never have to go to church to go to heaven. Church is not going to put you in heaven. He also told them that just because they're a Pharisee, don't mean they're going to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they claim to be a priest does not mean they're going to heaven. There is a lot of false preachers. A lot of preachers not preaching the truth about God. So he basically, what Jesus did, is he opened the people's eyes.
Right.
to the point that just because they're a priest and they say you got to do this, that does not mean that's what God wants you to do.
Right.
And he also made that point and proved that point when he went to the holy city during Sabbath and flipped tables. Because he proved to them that, this is not holy.
Right.
Selling stuff in God's house is not holy.
That's not how it works, right?
Not how it works. You should not be selling this. This is a place of praise. And he basically taught people that, hey, you know what? Y'all can be a preacher of God.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wear a suit and go to the temple to be a preacher of God. Every person on this earth can be a praiser of God.
Right.
All you have to do is take God's message and go out and teach it. And that's what he did. And that's why he told all the stories that he did about different stuff. And he basically opened religion up from the old way of thinking to the newer way of thinking.
Right.
So when he doing these little things and proving his way, then he had talked to a Somalian woman, and that's when he told her, tell everybody, please, because I'm here. My job is to change the way people think about God. And Jesus also had a lot of, you see, for a while there, while he's building his disciples, people don't know this, but he lived in the woods.
Yep.
Like, he didn't have a set home. He went from town to town searching for his disciples, and he lived in the woods. And what he did for food is, because he's a carpenter, he'd make little knickknacks or whatever that he would sell in the town to buy food or trade for food. And when he's living in woods, especially in this one town, which was, trying to think of the town. I think it was right outside of Bethlehem. When he's living in the woods, a couple kids ran into his camp, noticed his camp. So he noticed them, so he started talking to them. And it got a little bit more kids, every day, more and more kids. And he'd do like a little Bible class for these kids and talk to them. And he would teach them about different stuff. And one thing he taught them, and it was funny because there's a story, if you ever watched The Chosen, it has this little sit down with him, and this one little girl who did not go to church, or didn't go what they call like a Sunday school.
Yeah.
Right? Most of the kids who was there listening to Jesus went to like a Sunday school. One little girl didn't go. Her parents couldn't get her there for whatever reason. But whenever Jesus asked the question, hey, why did David do this? And why did Moses do this? She was the one who would raise her hand and answer the question. He's like, very good, very good. And it got to the point where he kind of went to her, and I don't recall her name because he talks about it in the Bible. I don't remember. I'm going to use her name as Sally. But it got to the point where he's like, Sally, let some of these kids who go, I forget the name of it, what they call it, the Jews call it, the special school for the kid. I forget the name of it. I'll call it Sunday school, but he goes, Sally, let one of these kids who go to Sunday school answer the question this time, okay? You don't go to it, and you obviously know it all, but these kids go to it. Let's see if they actually have the answer.
Right.
So he made them answer, and one of the things he told them, he said, right out, like he always told them, you always obey your parents. You always obey your elders. But just because a preacher tells you something does not mean it's actually God's way. You need to figure out for yourself and talk with God yourself and see if it goes in line with what the actual scripture is. And the kids kept asking him, well, what are you doing here? What's your mission on this? What are you doing here? And Jesus actually looked at the kids and said, you are still yet kids. And I hope once I come out and let people know who I really am, I hope these adults, one, ask the same questions as you kids do. And 2, listen like you kids are listening.
Right.
He goes, because as an adult, we need to learn to listen as a kid. Which makes sense. And he told him right out, he goes, you may be too young right now to understand who I am. But soon, you will know who I am.
Right.
So basically, he's telling the kids, hey, I'm the Messiah, but you guys don't understand what that is yet. But give it a couple years, you're going to be like, oh my God, I talked to the Jesus Christ, the Messiah.
Right.
So, but it was pretty good at how he started some of his coming out tour talking to little kids. And then he had a group followers that he
Right.
can talk to. Before he actually did his actual tour, when he actually came out full bore. And the thing is he just did so much before he actually came out, and people just know about what he did when he actually came out. And one thing, and I was wrong about this myself. Like, I assumed myself that 2 different ways. I actually assumed at one point in my life, I thought he did it his whole life, and then finally the Romans got sick of him and hung him or crucified him. Second way, once I found out that, hey, you know what, it was only a 3-year run that he actually did his miracle, a lot of his miracles and his coming out. So I always wondered, what changed that? Why didn't he do it younger?
Yeah.
And I never really knew, because it doesn't talk about it really in depth in the Bible. It's in there, but you got to look for it.
Right.
Some different things, like early Matthew has talks about it. Early John has talks about it, but not all of it has talks about it. And it's very limited what's said about it in the Bible. So, but he also told the kids and the people, because back then, before Jesus actually came out, and this is why the Jews do not believe in Jesus Christ actually being a Christ. Because in their mind, it was put in their head that when the Christ came back, he was going to come back on a horse with weapons and lead armies and take out the kings. So that's how they were thought. So they expected this man to come in on this white horse with swords in hand, defeating armies and kings, and then ruling all the land. And Jesus turned around and he said, and he told, actually, one of his scriptures, parables with adults and kids is, God is a forgiving God, and God is a God of love. Why would he send his son, the Messiah, in to kill his children? Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a God of love, and all us people are his children, why would he take his son and have him go kill his other children?
Right.
That'd make no sense.
Right.
That'd be like me having another kid right now and bringing it up to, hey, when you turn 18, you go kill your brothers and sisters. That's your job, to go kill your brothers and sisters.
Right.
That would make no sense.
No.
So, with that being said, it made sense. So Jesus told everybody. But a lot of Jewish that would not follow Jesus is like, dude, we know that God's sending them in to defeat all these kings that are keeping us hostage and keeping us slaves. And no, he wasn't. He's sending your leader in to give you hope. Not to defeat your battles and to fight your battles. And the other thing is, and that's why when Jesus went to Jerusalem, when he's coming out towards the end, when they actually went into Jerusalem for Sabbath, he actually rode a donkey. And the whole point was he was not going to ride in on a white horse, so then people think that he's coming in to defeat. So he actually got a donkey and rode in on a donkey to prove that, hey, I am a lamb. I am God's lamb. So I'm coming in on this donkey because I'm humbling myself in to let you guys know.
Right.
So he actually did the opposite of the white horse. He got a donkey.
Right.
Only because he didn't want people to think that, hey, God is sending this knight in shining armor in on a white horse.
That's crazy.
So he rode in on a donkey instead. Be kind of funny if he had a bunch of swords hanging out of him. And let's go, and the Roman soldier would be like, "What is this clown doing?" But that's my jokes aside. But that's a lot. His before coming out tour was pretty intricate, and even though it doesn't say much about it in the Bible, it says enough
to paint the picture.
But it's a lot of depth and detail.
Yeah.
A lot of planning and like there's a lot of talk about the 2 stages. Well, 3 stages. His birth.
Yeah.
Then his middle
puberty years,
I guess, early years when he really started. Then you got in his 20s, just before he actually comes out, there was a lot that took place, and it doesn't say a time frame, but I'm guessing it would be a year or 2 before he actually comes out in public.
Right.
And says, "Hey, I'm the Messiah. Here I am.
Right.
Follow me now." Where he was just saying, "Hey, no, I can heal this leper, but just listen." But let's keep it quiet. Let's keep it on down low. Let's not tell nobody. So, with that, what's your comment section for this week?
I want to know what the listeners learned. I know me personally, I learned a lot this episode. I've never really known much about Jesus in his teenager or in his younger years. I knew about the blind preacher at Sabbath.
Yep.
But other than that, I knew nothing.
Believe it or not, people usually don't read that part of scripture, or when they do read it, they jump over it.
Right.
Or it's not a big memory because it's not like a lot like later on with all his it don't talk about. He didn't talk in parables.
Right.
Hey, your 9-year-old, he ain't gonna talk parables.
It's just this little boy going healing blind men.
Yeah, and saying, "Oh crap, how did I do that?" More or less, because you didn't know actually how he was doing it.
Right.
So a lot of people don't know the mid years, and that's good. I like that. I got a couple missions along with my comment section. One, there's a new movie on Netflix about Jesus' younger. I forgot the name of it. I should have looked up the name before I came back.
We'll put it in the description.
It's basically about that middle years. It's not about just before he came out, and it's not about when he was born, but the middle years when he's between 8 and 12 years old and stuff that went on there. The movie's just on that, and it's a pretty good movie. It actually teaches you a lot about that time frame. And the other is, I was telling Isaiah tonight, talking to Isaiah, I've said this in the past. You guys really want to know about Jesus after and his coming out time? The movie that's called The Chosen is a really, really accurate
the series,
portrayal of what happened in Jesus' coming out tour before the pre-plan when he's picking the disciples and all that.
Right.
And then accurate right to detail of when he's coming out. Now, it's supposed to be a 6-series show. They only got series 1, which is 6 episodes done.
Is it 6 or 8?
It might be 8. 6 or 8 episodes, but they got season 1 done. And one thing about it's a non-profit movie, so nobody's making money on this, and you can watch it totally for free. They have their own channel called The Chosen. You download it to your phone or whatever, your TV or whatever, your smart TV, and you watch it. So it's their own channel, and it's free to watch. But they do ask for donations because the donations, 1, goes for streaming of the movie. 2 is it goes on to making of the 2nd season and 3rd seasons and making more series.
Right.
One thing they have dedicated on doing this, the directors and the writers, is to keep this as accurate as possible to the Bible. So they literally have some real good theologians and priests that know the Bible very well, who is part of the writing team, to make sure every incident in this TV series is accurately right on the money. So that makes it good. 2, the actors that play in this, there are some known actors that I've seen in big movies. And a lot of these actors I've never seen in any movie before. I don't know where they found them. But their cast that they picked, oh my God. They found people that portray that role very well. Like the man who plays Jesus Christ. I'm talking to you in the fact that in my mind of what I would have thought it would look like, and the way Jesus would have talked, and the things that Simon would have done, and Peter and Mary and all of them, and how they would have acted, and the way things would have went, they couldn't have done a better casting. Because in my mind, it's exactly how I picture it in my mind of what Jesus would be like and how he would speak and what he would do. And in my mind, it was a pretty accurate thing. Whether or not it's accurate in real life, nobody knows. I was gonna lie back then.
Right.
You were gonna lie back then. But in my mind, it's right on what I can imagine it would be. So I want people to start watching that. So as far as my comments, I want to know. Basically, I like yours if you learned anything, but I want to know, basically, is there any part of Jesus' life that you really want to know a little bit more about? Or any one of his parables that you want to know a little bit more in depth about? Please ask.
I have a little caveat. This is like a sub comment section. But what are there any misconceptions or issues you guys have with religion or with religious people? Because that's one of the main reasons we started this podcast, was to dismiss those misconceptions. And I haven't heard any more from what we've already covered.
No.
But if you know of one, or if you personally have questions yourself, feel free to ask us in the comment section, on social media. Yeah.
All right, with that being said, hope you have a great week.